It's not that easy to kill a man anymore. Today, the House of Representatives passed and sent to the President for his signature a bill that would severely curb the sale of all handguns, both within a state and across state lines. A proponent of handgun registration legislation, Dallas County Sheriff Bill Decker, has these words on gun registration.
I feel we should have some type of registration. I think the individual has a right to own arms. But I feel this way, that these people who are selling these cheap pistols through the mail to every individual, man, woman, and children, should certainly have to register that gun into ownership so that there'd be some way we could keep a record of it while it was floating around over our country, being carried to and from the home.
I think that earlier, many large segments of our population were deprived because solutions to their problems and their needs were simply not available. But being deprived when the solution is not available does not cause anything except sadness and depression. It's not a stimulus to violence. Violence resulting from frustration occurs rather when a solution is in sight, but you can't get to it. So near and yet so far, so to speak.
These two persons were very active in trying to eliminate the barriers between people so that we could have a better understanding. Their death has brought a deep sense of realization. Where do we go from here? What is happening in our country? What's going on? What's the problem? We have come to the point now where it seems as though we cannot disagree without being disagreeable. Yes, we will miss Robert Kennedy. We appreciate his service, but now we have to reevaluate our stand. All America must reevaluate their ideas as it relates to human dignity. We do have a vacuum. That vacuum, I know, will be filled. The time has come that Americans must stand up and be counted.
Robert Kennedy was one of the champions of minority rights in America. He's now gone. The Reverend S.M. Wright, the president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, feels the vacuum.
Yes, since the death of Robert Kennedy and the death of Martin Luther King,
Purchase this gun would be made to keep a record of it, and when it was sold, if it was transferred, should be able to give a record where the gun is gone. Then we would know where it is. The average person who buys a firearm takes it home and keeps it for his own protection. In that way, they don't give us trouble. But it's the people who are violators of the law and people who are off beat somewhere that are getting the guns that's causing us this trouble.
Until this recent crime bill was passed, the National Rifle Association had a good record in preventing much handgun and rifle possession and registration laws. A spokesman for the NRA, Dallas gun dealer Leon Red Jackson, explains their position.
If this type of legislation could have prevented the tragedy of the assassination of Senator Kennedy, the California law would have done it. California has some very strict laws on purchasing. There's a 7-day waiting period. They have a strict law on carrying. Certainly this man was carrying. And the law prohibits an alien from even possessing a gun. So if this approach could work, the California law would have prevented this thing. I don't feel that any legislation will help until they start treating criminals like criminals and quit pampering them. Certainly the mere possession of a firearm, and that's the philosophy of the present federal approach, is that the mere possession of a firearm will cause a person to commit a crime. There are 50 million people, at least in the United States, who own firearms, and I don't think there are 50 million potential criminals simply because they own them.
As the NRA points out, it was never really that easy to kill a man with a gun. Unless you're a good shot, you may hurt someone you didn't even know was there. But the Dallas Police Department in 1967 shows 107 homicides with a gun, 81% of all the murders in the city. The United States now joins many European nations in restricting the sale of guns. Whether it will be useful remains to be seen. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News.
Well, in my opinion, the term sick applied to any country would be inappropriate. I believe that the country or the nation is not an organism. It is simply a population of people living together in a certain place. And we can say that there are times of relative stability and times of instability, and perhaps at this time we can see a good deal of disturbance. But these disturbances can be understood. I think that the use of a term like sick is clearly inappropriate. Now, in looking at behavior of this kind, I think one of the most profitable things that we might do is to examine some of the trends in our society that might be related to a climate in which violence is accepted to a greater extent and perhaps is more accessible to people. I would make a distinction here, for example, between deprivation and frustration.